Good morning. This is Lance Kenmore with the Kenmore team, and I'd like to welcome you to this week's edition of the Tri-Cities Real Estate Update. As always, you can contact me, Lance Kenmore, anytime direct on my cell phone at 509-727-8977 or visit us on the web at kenmoreteam.com. Once again, I always like to thank John for hosting and everybody here at the station for working to make this happen. Mr. John McKay, how you doing over there?
Well, you know that big orange-red thing in the sky? It's called the sun.
I saw it recently.
Yeah.
Yes. It's amazing. We're gonna talk a little bit about that. Means something a little bit different for real estate, but yeah, we've got some nice days the last couple days. So that is gonna segue us right into our local topic. But it's nice. It's really nice for real estate. Mm-hmm. So, John, I do need to give you a warning before the show.
Okay.
So, I've been tricked into a crazy program.
Okay.
Called, so if I'm cranky today on air, it's because I'm like 3 days into 75 hard. Have you heard about this?
No, probably.
Okay,
I don't
so
think
it goes around every January, February, makes the social media round. So basically, I have to do 2 workouts a day. Mm-hmm. I have to stick to a diet plan with no cheat days. Mm-hmm. I have to drink a gallon of water. Oh. So at the break, I might have to use the restroom. And then have to read 10 pages a day, which is pretty easy for me. I like to keep up.
Well, that's a good thing, diet or not.
Yeah, I think it's a good thing. I just might, like I said, I might be cranky this first week. Mm-hmm. So anyway, our journey of 75 hard has started, and it's going pretty good so far.
Good. I don't mind watching what I consume as long as there's not less of it.
Yeah, exactly.
I am not a fan of diets that make you eat 2 banana slices and a saltine cracker. And do it.
And what talked me into this program is it's really just like you make an eating plan and stick with it. Like it didn't have to be prescribed this diet or that diet and that. So anyway, we'll tune things up a little bit and see how it goes in a couple of weeks. I'll let you know. But we like to start off with our crazy celebrity real estate story. And this week, out of Southern California, the numbers are just astounding. So, John, do you own any Skechers?
I think I have I do. Yes.
Okay, so you have contributed to this news story. So, the owners of the shoe brand Skechers have added a second Hermosa Beach property to their portfolio. So, what this means is they had bought one house for $16 million, $16 million back in 2019 and decided it wasn't enough room and they were going to make a family compound. So off market, they went to the neighbors and they bought that house for $15.4 million.
Wow.
Now, I've seen the pictures of this. It's not impressive. It's, I mean, maybe the location's impressive, right? But 2,800 square feet with a 2-car garage built in the 40s. And that went for $15.4 million. Now, location. Correct, right? And it wasn't on the market, so they just wanted it because it was next door. So they probably just, what's the term for that? They just money whipped it.
Yeah.
So they just went in there and told the neighbor, hey, we want it. Here's what we're willing to do. So they are creating the ultimate family compound to the tune of what appears to be, if I did my math right, around $31 million.
Wow.
So anyway, I was just blown away. You know, some of these I come and I look at the pictures and I'm like, wow, this is a pretty awesome house for that price. And that's really cool. This one just looks like a North Richland house. Now, granted, I don't have Hermosa Beach to stare at, but once again, location. So that was just absolutely a crazy number to see come across my desk. But John, earlier you were talking about, I believe you were referencing the sun.
Yes.
And I will tell you what, if the amount of phone calls we had this week are any indication of what happens when that sun comes out, the question that comes up is, are we poised for an early spring market in the Tri-Cities? That was the number one question that I got this week from people calling in, people we ran into at events that we talked to. What does that look like? And so, because a lot of people will hold off putting their house on the market. They'll say, well, I know there's an old real estate saying, well, I know the best time to sell is in the spring. Mm-hmm. We're going to wait till everything looks better and curb appeal looks better. And while there is an element of truth to that, trying to time it perfectly is a little bit difficult. And so we always look to the numbers and look to experience to see what that means. But I will tell you that the activity uptick has been significant in the last couple of weeks. So the first thing that I like to do to decide if we're going to have a spring market in the Tri-Cities early, right now, which, I mean, it's February. It sure didn't feel like it this last week.
No.
But right now, are interest rates trending in the right direction? That's the first question that you have to ask when you're addressing the situation. Mm-hmm. And the answer to that is yes. I mean, we saw rates that were at the start of the year and the end of last year in the 7s. Those have come down. Now, we had a couple of weeks ago, the Feds announced that they were holding rates. But in the last 2 to 3 weeks, rates have been trending back closer to 6.5%. That's standard for what we're seeing for 30-year fixed, and trending, neutral to lower. So what happens immediately? Buyers are back in the market. Like, hey, those rates are starting to get attractive. I can afford the payments again. That's what it looks like. The next question that you have to look at is, what is happening with inventory?
Yep.
Inventory versus sales, and those numbers are going to determine if we have an early spring market and what type of market it is.
So it has nothing to do with the groundhog.
It has not very much to. What is that? Puxatawny Phil?
Yes.
Is that the name that I? Yeah. It does not have a lot to do with him.
Okay.
So we're going to look at those numbers and say, what do those numbers in January look like? Well, if we look at active listings when we rolled over to the first of this month, active listings were 720. So previous month, when we saw in December, we saw that number was 770. And so, yes, things will naturally go down a little bit as you go into a cold January, and we had some snow in that. But if we look at as we rolled over into this month, active listings right now running about 720. Now, here's the big difference. The number of listings under contract increased from, it was 164 in December. Under contract now in January was 226. So as soon as we rolled over the calendar year, we saw those rates come back down. They ate up that inventory, and that's why we saw the active listings go from 770 right back down to 720, and they haven't been refilled yet.
Okay.
So now we have lower inventory, and when you look at what those numbers mean, you have to look and extrapolate out how many months of inventory do we have.
Yeah.
So if we look in December, it looked like we had, if no other homes came on the market, just over a 4 to 4.3 months supply of inventory. Still a seller's market in that situation. Now we look at what's happened, and we have 226 under contract. And if we say that's roughly what we're going to sell in the next 30 days on average, now you look at, we're right back down to only a 3-month supply of inventory. Average sales price of what went under contract, $459,000, which is higher than it was in the previous year already.
Yeah.
So when I take all of that into the situation, and then the big kicker that we come up with, and I've always said this in the Tri-Cities, is that if there is not snow on the ground February 1st, when that kicks over and we're out of that situation, we're gonna have an early spring market in the Tri-Cities. Like, for instance, I love Facebook memories because where it shows you that picture from 5 years ago. Well, the one that came up this week was 5 years ago. It was a lockbox that you get the key out, and I had hand warmers all surrounding it inside a hat at a house because I couldn't get the freaking key out of the lockbox. that is obviously, like you said, at 55 degrees or whatever it was nice this week. That is not the case. So we have more activity, lower interest rates, buyers putting offers in. I saw 2 contracts in the last 3 days from buyers that we've been working with for 8 to 9 months.
Wow.
That popped and went under contract. They found the house, the rates were right. That's an early spring market in the Tri-Cities. And so to answer that question, as of right now and kind of looking at the extended weather report, it looks like the next 2 weeks we have a lot more of the same. And so in that case, we are really, really busy all of the sudden. So with that being said, that's why I'm getting the questions from people calling in is, what do I need to do to have my house ready to put on the market in the next couple of weeks if we're at an early spring market and you want to move? Because you're going to have a better chance, right? With less inventory on the market. If you're one of the first that goes on the market in that month, there's going to be less competition because people are already looking and there's less listings to look at. So we go back to some really basic stuff for this show. In the last couple shows, we've done a lot of, predictions and high-level statistics of what exactly happened. But as far as like prepping my house for sale, today's like some real basics to talk about. So National Association of Realtors says 96% of real estate agents advise improving curb appeal before sellers list the house. It's kind of like hit your head, hit yourself with a hammer. Dumb stuff. Like if it looks nicer, it's gonna sell. It's gonna sell for more money. So that's like a big thing. And then the thing about it is another survey, like let's say we don't even believe in AR, and we're tired of hearing about them. So, but you look at like HomeLight and some of these other companies have done surveys, and 94% of agents in the HomeLight survey agree that buyers are willing to pay more for houses with better curb appeal. So they actually quantified this and went through and did a study and said on average, buyers will pay 7% more for a house that has curb appeal versus a house that looks like it has neglected curb appeal. Yeah. So if you look at our averages, let's just take $400,000 house and you have 7% in value. That's $28,000 more if that house has some decent curb appeal. And we're not talking about big dollar improvements. In fact, when we come back from the break, I'm going to give you 5 or 6 really simple things under $10,000 that you can do to a house like that to get it ready to be on the spring market and get you the most amount of money possible.
Right here on News Talk 870.
Welcome back to the Tri-Cities Real Estate Update. Today we've been talking about really the kickoff to an early spring market in the Tri-Cities. We've had great weather, lower interest rates, some new inventory coming to market. And so that creates an air of an early spring market here in the Tri-Cities. So we're going to talk a little bit about how you can prep your house to get it sold and get the most amount of money in that situation. Before I do, though, I always like to get my pick 3 out because we personally have some really good inventory that's come on the market as well that buyers can take a look at. So my pick number 1 is 2805 West 37th Avenue in Kennewick. Okay. This is a 2,000 square foot house, 3-bedroom, 2-bath house on a corner lot with new carpet, dog run, and garden area. Okay, it has an absolutely huge, spacious family room, engineered hardwood flooring, and a gas fireplace. Remodeled kitchen that has Cambria quartz countertops, full tile backsplash, prep island, and pantry, good looking kitchen, and then a great private backyard, fully fenced with a patio. And here's the kicker about these, coming in at $468,000. It's a really nice, well-kept Rambler for $468,000. Pick number 2, I've got a compound for you, McKay, at this situation. Now, this is a super cool property. I'm going to take you to Washtenaw, 305 Southwest Cooper Street. This is a 4-bed, 2-bath, 1729 square foot house. So it's on 1 acre It's a historic home originally built, get this, 1903. But it's had upgraded new carpet, 50-year aluminum roof, and tons of interior upgrades. Spacious living room that has original pillar details from the historic home, triple pane windows and a fireplace, large bright kitchen with tons of counter space, and then here's what everybody likes with the acreage properties: 2-bay shop with a workshop room as well for all your projects. Now get this, listen to this price, $350,000 for that house. So great pricing on that. Last one of the day, our pick number 3, 500 North Oklahoma Place. This is a 4-bedroom, 4-bath, 2,800 square foot house. Multi-generational opportunities with 2 primary suites, a bonus room, a putting green, and RV parking. Open layout, tile flooring, vaulted ceilings, great open kitchen with granite counters, breakfast bar, and a built-in oven. Huge covered patio, fully fenced backyard, and once again, price point, $509,000. So some really good inventory hitting the market at that $500,000 and under range, which has been a difficult price range to get buyers into. So some good new inventory about to be coming on the market. If you have any questions about that, go to kenmoreteam.com, shoot us a message. We'd love to help you out with that. Well, before the break, we started to talk a little bit about getting your house ready for the market. If it is an early spring market, if I want to be ready in the next couple of weeks or next month, what are people looking for in that situation? Well, the big thing that we talk about with curb appeal in that situation is when people come up, and the very first one that we do a lot of work on is exterior paint. If you look at the ROI in general, the national statistics are an exterior paint job on a home will return roughly 150% ROI. So, if you're going to spend $10,000 on an exterior paint, you're likely to get $15,000 back in value. Now, not every time in every situation, but if it has been neglected and that's the situation you're in, and even some of the smaller houses, you're looking at paint jobs of $4,000 to $6,000, also returning that same ROI.
Yeah.
So that's the very first thing that we look at. On top of that, it increases your potential buyer pool because with FHA or VA, you can't have peeling paint anyway in those situations. It's going to come up on appraisal. So this also kind of kills 2 birds with 1 stone, getting that exterior paint brightened up. The next thing with probably one of the biggest ROIs and that we can attack right now is basic yard care. This gets missed all the time in these transitional months. And so you look at, because it is a little bit early for some people to start, but if you look at that, there are times where people maybe they're busy or life gets in the way. They don't start yard care or that routine until the end of April or maybe the 1st of May, and then things are out of control. And the spring real estate market is gone at that point, and we're moving into the early summer market. So starting now with some basic stuff, trimming and getting the grass trimmed and cut up, laying down your winter fertilizer program, starting your early spring program now, that's going to make a huge difference, especially with, I'm not 100% a chemical expert, but I can tell you enough to know if you're working on like controlling crabgrass and some of those things, those applications have to happen in the next couple months or you miss your window. Yeah. Once it's too late, it's too late.
What do they call it?
Pre-emergence.
Pre-emergence.
Yeah, 100%. So this is the time period in an early spring market where people need to pay attention to that. You can, in general, with some of that yard care, within $500 to $1,000, you can expect almost a 400% ROI in that situation. So, spending, $500 to $1,000 in that situation could bring $3,000 to $4,000 back in value. It makes a massive, massive difference. John, at the break, like, because you've listened to the show for a number of years, but you started at the break. You were just saying, Lance, I know you're going to talk about the entrance.
Yeah.
And what did you say during the break? First thing you went to?
Front door.
Front door. Absolutely. It is the entrance to the house. And in general, what happens, it's a pausing point for clients. So meaning what happens is they go up to the front door while the realtor's looking for the lockbox or trying to get the key out of the lockbox, and they're just sitting there for a minute or 2 minutes twiddling their thumbs, but they're not. They're inspecting everything they can see around them. That is their first time to be standing there, and they start to look at the trim around the front door. They look at the color of the front door, and they immediately make a first impression about the maintenance level of the house. And so freshening that up, putting a very attractive color on the front door, making sure there is, in fact, like a fresh doormat on the door, not an old dirty one that's, got mud all over it. That makes a big, big difference, even to the point of now having like a smart doorbell on the front. It just shows a little bit of an upgrade, like, oh, this house has some upgraded technology. It's clean. It's well maintained. Like, that sets the impression for the whole showing at that entrance. So those are some of the very, very cheap things that you can do in that situation. The other thing is, if you want people to remove their shoes or have their shoes off or on in a house, having somewhere for them to sit to do that when you go into a house. For instance, you go into a house that maybe is vacant and they say, oh, please remove shoes. But there's not a bench or something there. You can stage that entrance with a bench, a cute bench that has everything on it. It just makes it that much more convenient, as opposed to somebody just being like, great, again at this house. And that's how they start their showing, like in a bad mood about it. So paying very, very close attention to the entrances will pay dividends when it comes time for that buyer to write an offer. Some of the other simple things to look out for is, especially after what we've had this winter, is if there's gutters at the front of the house, making sure those are clean and not overflowing or filled with pine needles or filled with leaves, because that shows up as well. And then some very basic pressure washing if it's the sidewalk leading up to the house or the entrances to the house, and the front windows especially fall into that category. Another trick to come up with is if your screens are like not in perfect condition, the window screens have a little hole in them or they're missing some pieces, just get rid of them. Like, just remove them for the showing. I have never in 20 years had a buyer not write an offer or ask me where are the window screens. Now, mark my words, one's probably listening to the radio show and we're going to get that question next week. But it didn't kill a sale, but yet at the same time, it can detract from the look of the front of the house.
If they're all ratty and torn up.
And so if nothing else, just grab them and put them away in the garage for showings and why the house is on the market. But in all intents and purposes, it's generally not a deal killer if they're missing in our realm of showing houses with buyers. So those are some of the biggest things that you can do in that situation. The next category and the final category that I have for today that I like to remind people about that comes up is, since we are in an early spring market, there are more showings and more buyers going out, but our daylight hasn't fully increased yet, meaning we're still doing showings very often from 6 o'clock at night till 8:30 at night when people get off of work. And so to do that, the number one thing is brightening up the entrances. So whether you have sidewalk lights that come up, if you don't have those hardwired, you can get solar options that you can line the flower beds with going up to a house, making sure The other thing is making sure there's no burnt out lights. What we get a lot of time this time of year is a vacant house that somebody hasn't been to in 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And they leave the porch lights and the garage lights on for 3 weeks straight, and then half of them burn out. Well, there's nothing more frustrating for a buyer, and that's curb appeal at night as well. Like when they approach the house, if the worst is if the 2 lights on the garage and the driveway are burnt out. It just makes the entire place look dark and dingy.
And foreboding. And for some people, it's a safety thing.
It is, yeah, it is absolutely a safety thing, 100%. So that is a big deal. The other thing that you can do in that situation is some very well-placed uplighting, especially you can use the solar-powered lights again if it's uplighting a planter or tree in the front yard or a feature of the house that might not normally be seen. The next month or two, this is kind of a crucial part of showings that happen in the evenings. And then a lot of times what people will do too, even if they do a daytime showing, a lot of our sophisticated buyers end up driving back by the house at night to see what the neighborhood is like in the evening, how many cars are parked on the street, that type of situation. So I always tell people, once again, a very simple trick for curb appeal. If your family normally has 4 cars in the household, you do not want like the driveway filled and then the street completely filled when it comes to showings. It's a turnoff for buyers. And so for the time being that you're on the market or listed, if you have extra vehicles, move them, borrow, steal, and beg a friend to let you keep it at their house or put it in front of their house or beside their house. If you can get rid of extra vehicles for showing, it doesn't cost you any extra money and it increases curb appeal drastically. Yes. So, and people tell me that all the time. Like for instance, the same thing goes for boats and RVs. People will say to me, they'll be like, hey, I have this huge RV parked beside my house and you can barely get by it on each side. And they'll say, I'll say to them at the listing appointment, I'll say, hey, so when we go on the market, when we take pictures and we go on the market, I need you to take the RV somewhere else and put it somewhere else and just leave this pad open. And they'll be like, well, that's ridiculous, Lance. I don't want to do that. And to which I always say, like, well, then I guess you don't want the other 7% that we're talking about with curb appeal. But what happens is their argument always is, well, if I have an RV parked there, then a buyer can visualize that I have an RV pad. And what every single time that happens in that situation is I walk by with a buyer, they see an RV pad and they can barely walk around it. And they look back there and they say, oh, there's not very much room beside the house. Every single time. And then when you remove it and they walk around the corner and there's this huge pad, what do they say to me every time? Oh gosh, I'm so glad that's there because I have an RV I could park there. Or I have a boat. I mean, it's just a
boat or something.
Every single time. It doesn't demonstrate it. It actually has the opposite effect. So for very, very cheap, doesn't cost a lot, curb appeal, take it to your in-laws' house and just let them deal with it for a couple weeks until we get this thing under contract.
Take it to your mother-in-law's house. And
so, McKay, that's the summary that I've got for you today. We are in an early spring market here in the Tri-Cities. Activity is increasing. If you want to speed up and if you are planning on listing in the spring, you want to look at getting your house on the market in the next couple weeks, go to kenmoreteam.com, shoot us a message. We'll get out there, do an evaluation, and get you on the market. With that being said, I'm going to get out of here and go to work, McKay, and we will be right back here next week.
Right here on News Talk 870.